How to make an avoidant feel safe enough to love you. You know what's heartbreaking? When you feel like someone does love you, but they just don't know how to let you love them. They pull back when things feel too good. They get quiet when you get close. It's like every time intimacy tries to grow, they build a wall fast. And if you've ever loved someone with an avoidant attachment style, you've felt the sting of that wall. It doesn't mean they don't care. It means they've been trained by life, by past wounds, to believe closeness isn't safe. So the question becomes, how do you create the kind of space where an avoidant person feels safe enough to stay, to love, to build with you? Let's be clear, you cannot fix someone's wounds, but you can be the kind of person who doesn't poke them. Let me give you something radical. It starts with understanding you're not being rejected. You're witnessing someone trying to survive love. Here's what matters most. When you're in a relationship with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, it can feel confusing when things that seem normal to you, like wanting to spend lots of time together, talking about feelings, or sharing everything, seem to make them retreat. One of the most powerful things you can do is slow the pace of the connection. This doesn't mean holding back your love or pretending not to care. It means becoming aware of how your natural rhythm might feel overwhelming to someone whose instinct is to protect themselves by pulling away. Avoidants often learned early on that closeness leads to pain, rejection, or loss of independence. So when things start to get emotionally intense, their nervous system reads it as a threat. Even if you're showing up with kindness and care, that threat isn't about you. It's their internal programming telling them, get out before you get hurt. By slowing things down, you interrupt that panic response. You create an environment that tells their nervous system, this is safe. Nothing's being forced here. This might look like not expecting daily, deep conversations, especially in the early stages. It might mean not interpreting a delayed reply as disinterest, but rather as them taking space they genuinely need. It also means letting things build gradually instead of trying to define the relationship too soon. Avoidants need time to trust that connection doesn't equal loss of self. When you slow the rhythm, you're not manipulating them, you're giving the relationship the room it needs to breathe. Slowing down also allows you to notice whether this person is genuinely trying to meet you halfway. Are they making small efforts over time to get closer? That's key. You're not pausing just to accommodate their fear. You're observing if their fear is something they're willing to work through. Because love can't be one-sided. The pace may be slower than what you're used to, but there still has to be movement. This approach is about presence, not pressure. You don't stop showing up. You just stop rushing the story. The most secure relationships often don't start with fireworks and intensity. They start with steady, consistent moments of safety. For an avoidant, consistency matters more than intensity. And when you learn to walk at their pace without abandoning your own needs, you give the connection a real chance to deepen in a way that feels safe, not scary. Being safe for an avoidant doesn't mean being passive or distant. It means being present in a way that doesn't overwhelm them. A person with an avoidant attachment style is highly sensitive to any dynamic that feels like they're being consumed, controlled, or trapped. That's why the most powerful thing you can do isn't to get louder in your love, but to become more grounded in it. When someone feels like they still have room to breathe inside a relationship, they're far more likely to stay close. The instinct when you sense someone pulling away is often to chase, to text more, ask more questions, demand clarity. But that chasing, while often coming from a genuine place of love or fear of loss, can feel suffocating to someone who already believes closeness equals danger. Instead, let them feel free to choose you. That doesn't mean being indifferent. It means standing in a place of self-worth and allowing space rather than using closeness as a way to control outcomes. Avoidants respond better to someone who can show care without clinging. You're not trying to prove that you're worthy of their love by overgiving. You're showing them what emotional safety feels like. Love without pressure, support without demand, affection without expectation of immediate return. The more they feel they can exist as they are without being judged or pushed, the more likely they are to lean in rather than pull away. This might look like giving them time to process their emotions instead of demanding instant communication. It could mean being okay with spending some time apart without interpreting it as abandonment. It's about creating a sense of spaciousness in the connection, one where love is offered, not forced. That kind of love, calm, confident, steady, is incredibly disarming for an avoidant because it breaks the pattern of fear they're used to experiencing. At the same time, this doesn't mean abandoning your needs or playing cool just to keep them close. You still get to express what you need and desire, but from a place of clarity, not desperation. By doing so, you become someone who doesn't threaten their independence, but also doesn't compromise their own integrity. And that balance is what helps an avoidant begin to see that maybe love doesn't have to mean losing themselves. Maybe in the right kind of relationship, they can be fully themselves and fully connected. When you're with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, one of the most important things you can learn is how to respond rather than react. Avoidants tend to withdraw when they feel emotionally overwhelmed. And if your instinct is to immediately confront, demand answers, or express hurt in a way that adds pressure, it can unintentionally reinforce their fear of closeness. That's why emotional regulation on your end is a game changer. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about choosing a response that builds trust rather than deepens fear. In moments when they pull away, it's natural to feel anxious. You might worry that they're losing interest or abandoning the relationship entirely, but reacting from that fear often makes things worse. Questions like, "Why are you acting like this?" or "Do you even care about me?" come from a place of vulnerability, but they can feel accusatory to someone who's already struggling to manage their emotional space. What they hear isn't, "I'm hurt," but "You're failing me," and that activates their defense mechanisms. Instead, take a breath and slow down your response. A calm, grounded approach like, "I notice you've been a bit distant. If you need space, that's okay. I'm here when you're ready to talk," sends a completely different message. It says, "I see you, I'm not going to chase you, but I'm also not disappearing." That message provides the emotional safety an avoidant needs in order to stay connected. It gives them permission to take space without fearing punishment or rejection. This doesn't mean you don't express your feelings. It means you choose how and when to express them, so they land instead of push the person further away. Your calmness isn't weakness, it's strength. It creates a dynamic where love isn't chaotic, where emotions don't explode, and where conflict doesn't equal disconnection. For an avoidant, that's rare and deeply reassuring. Avoidants are often expecting drama because that's what they've experienced in past relationships or even childhood. When you break that pattern by responding with stability, you begin to rewrite their understanding of what closeness can look like. You're not walking on eggshells, you're walking with awareness. And awareness is what creates the space for growth, not just for them, but for you too. Emotional safety isn't just about what you feel, it's about what you do with those feelings. Responding instead of reacting makes love less of a battlefield and more of a refuge. That's what helps an avoidant stop running and start reaching back. When you're in a relationship with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, it's easy to get caught in a pattern of monitoring their behavior to feel secure. You might find yourself constantly analyzing their texts, wondering what their silences mean, or adjusting your mood based on how close or distant they seem. But this dynamic slowly erodes your emotional foundation. The truth is, the more grounded and self-sufficient you are emotionally, the more safety and strength you bring into the relationship, and the more attractive you become to someone who is afraid of losing themselves in love. Avoidant individuals are hyper-attuned to signs that they might be engulfed or controlled. They often pull away the moment they sense that your happiness or peace is entirely dependent on their presence or attention. When you show that you're emotionally stable and fulfilled on your own, you communicate something powerful. You're important to me, but you're not responsible for my emotional well-being. That message removes pressure, which allows them to let their guard down. Building emotional self-sufficiency doesn't mean pretending not to care. It means cultivating your own sense of purpose, joy, and connection outside the relationship. Do you have passions? Do you maintain strong friendships? Are you investing in your own growth? These things don't just make you stronger. They actually soothe the nervous system of an avoidant partner because they signal that the relationship won't consume them. You become someone who enhances their life, not someone who needs rescuing or reassurance every step of the way. When you can stay steady in yourself, even when they're distant or uncertain, you shift the dynamic. You're not waiting for them to give you security. You already have it. And ironically, that's what makes them feel safer around you. They may never say it out loud, but on a deeper level, they feel drawn to the peace and emotional consistency you provide. That's because it's the opposite of what they fear: volatility, chaos, or emotional dependency. There's something deeply magnetic about someone who's centered. You listen without absorbing. You care without clinging. You love without losing yourself. That kind of presence is rare. And for someone with an avoidant style, it challenges the belief that relationships require them to give up who they are. When you show that you're already whole, you give them permission to stop guarding so fiercely. Not because they have to, because they finally feel they can. When someone with an avoidant attachment style opens up to you, even in small ways, it's a huge step. Vulnerability doesn't come easily to them. They've likely built emotional walls out of necessity, shaped by experiences where being open led to disappointment, shame, or hurt. So when they share a personal story, admit they miss you, or express a need, it might seem like a quiet moment, but it's actually a major act of trust. What happens next matters more than you might realize. How you respond will either reinforce their sense of safety or confirm their fear that opening up is dangerous. The instinct might be to analyze, question, or even joke about their vulnerability. Sometimes we do this without realizing it because their emotions surprise us or because we're nervous and don't know how to respond. But to an avoidant, even a small misstep can feel like punishment. That might look like bringing up their confession later during an argument, teasing them about being soft, or making it about your needs rather than acknowledging what it took for them to share. These reactions send a message. Vulnerability isn't safe here. What they need instead is softness. When they take that step toward emotional intimacy, meet it with presence and care. A simple, "Thank you for telling me that," or "That means a lot to hear," can have a profound impact. It shows them that opening up doesn't lead to judgment or loss of control. It leads to connection. These moments, when handled gently, can slowly undo years of emotional conditioning. It's also important not to expect emotional expression to look a certain way. Avoidants might not always say, "I love you," or "I'm scared." They may show vulnerability in subtle ways, checking in on you, remembering something small you said, or simply choosing to spend consistent time with you. These are their ways of inching toward trust. Recognizing and valuing these efforts helps them feel seen for who they are, not for who you want them to be. Rewarding vulnerability with emotional safety isn't about being perfect. It's about creating a pattern. Every time they open up, you meet it with warmth instead of tension. Over time, that repeated experience teaches them something new. That closeness doesn't equal danger, and love doesn't mean losing control. It means being held, understood, and allowed to be fully human. That's what gives an avoidant person the courage to keep showing up, not just with you, but with their whole heart. So here's what it all comes down to. When you're loving someone with an avoidant attachment style, your power isn't in chasing or fixing. Your power is in creating a space where love feels less like a threat and more like a quiet, steady invitation. You're not trying to pull them out of their shell. You're showing them moment by moment that they can choose to step out when they're ready, and you'll be there, not waiting with demands, but with understanding. Real love isn't just about intensity. It's about consistency, boundaries, emotional safety, and mutual growth. And yes, sometimes that growth is slow, but when someone finally learns that they don't have to run from love, that it can actually feel safe, calm, and freeing, that's when the walls begin to fall. You can't guarantee how someone will respond to the love you offer, but you can choose to show up in a way that's grounded, kind, and secure. And that choice doesn't just help them heal, it elevates you. Because becoming the kind of person who can hold space without losing yourself is one of the most powerful things you can do. Thank you for giving your heart the chance to understand more deeply and to love more wisely. Take care of yourself, take your time, and remember, real love isn't rushed, it's built. Thank you for being here and for listening with an open heart. Whether you're navigating this dynamic now or simply preparing for a future relationship, know that your willingness to learn and grow already sets you apart. These conversations matter because you matter, and how you love, how you show up, makes a difference. Wishing you patience, strength, and a love that feels as safe as it is deep. Until next time, take care and thank you again.